Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to my new video. Going to be talking about all of the latest news articles happening around the world, and I'm not going to waste any more time. Let's get down to it. So these leaked documents looks like the suspect had already released them much earlier to his friends, and all of these articles flying around in the West, they all are after this young kid who is 21 years old. He's just a normal guardsman. He's nobody important in the military. So the question is, how the hell did this young kid get hold of these documents, these important top secret documents? I mean, these top secret important documents should be only accessed by top level, you know, really top level individuals. So how the hell did this lower ranking guy get hold of these documents? So it just tells me that maybe this guy was some sort of scapegoat and that he's basically being used. And he's just going to be sentenced. Maybe somebody higher up has told him, you need to take the fall for this. We'll give you some money, we'll give your family some money, but you just take the fall for this issue. So the person who actually did probably release them or did set them out, he's probably scot free at the moment, and he probably is a very high ranking officer, and he's probably given this young kid a lot of money. So when he comes out, he'll be a millionaire or something. Who knows? But it seems to me that this young kid has been made into a scapegoat, and the real guy who has leaked these documents is basically scot-free. So my issue with the media is, why are they focusing on this kid releasing all of these top secret documents? Why are they not focusing on what's in the documents? Like these top secret things, why are they not focusing on them? The fact that United States is listening on his allies, like in South Korea, like all the UN leaders, they're listening, wiretapping them. So they are basically spying on their own allies. And then again, they start banning devices like Huawei, accusing China of spying while they do it themselves. The only reason they banned Huawei is because they couldn't find a backdoor way to spy within Huawei, because the Huawei's encryption services is absolutely top of the range. So it's absolutely impossible to kind of spy you in using Huawei. So because they couldn't do that, they decided to ban Huawei from not only United States but its allies. And the reason they banned Huawei from its allies is not because of Chinese spyware, is because they could not spy on their allies using Huawei systems. So because they couldn't do it, they start blaming the Chinese, saying the Chinese using Huawei to spy, blah blah blah. So they got rid of all these allied countries that got rid of their spyware. So the United States is happily, carrying on spying on them, and it's absolutely ridiculous. And not only that, there's other things in there as well. I mean, to be honest, there's nothing in these top secret documents that's not like common sense. The fact that Ukraine has got no weapons, is running out of weapons, running out of you know anti-aircraft missiles, artillery, the casualty counts. I mean, it's just common sense. Everybody knows this already. There's nothing in these documents that's really top secret that you just don't know already. If you have a bit of common sense, you know these things are happening around the world. So the fact is, I just believe that this young kid has been made into a scapegoat, and there's more to this story that than meets the eye. And the fact that media is doing a complete like blackout, rather than focusing on what's in the documents, they're just focusing on the guy who leaked it. And this shows me that the media is absolutely controlled. You got people like Sky News and BBC, which are talking about the document, and yet they are on TV. What they're doing is um, blacking out the documents and things like that. And initially, all of these news channels were coming out saying it's fake, it's fake. Now they're saying it's not fake, it's real, and they're blacking it out in the news sites. I mean, why are you blacking it out? It's already online. It's already online if you look for it. And the fact that this kid was basically sharing it with his friends in a gaming channel as well, it just sounds really weird. Why would someone leak all of these documents in a gaming channel? And he did it like months ago or something like that. And it just doesn't make any sense. Um, I, I just think that maybe he got it from somewhere. Maybe somebody else leaked it and he managed to get hold of it or something. I don't know. I mean, I don't know the full story. But this whole story just sounds like a sham to me, absolute sham. And the media again have showed themselves to be absolute puppets of the West. They are not basically, um, rather than basically putting this guy as a hero, releasing documents that's really, really important for the world to know. Rather than putting this guy as a hero, they're making him look like some sort of criminal. And all the media outlets are basically out there to destroy this young kid. And I believe he was one of these newspapers that got him arrested as well. And it's absolutely clown world. It's absolute clown world. This is absolutely crazy. Anyway, let's move on. So I want to kind of talk about China's economy. Obviously, recently they've announced that they've had a 4.5% GDP growth in China. And I want to kind of remind you that only a few months ago, there was hundreds and hundreds of YouTube channels talking about collapse of China. And these are massive channels. We're talking about millions of subscribers. And they're all talking about China's economy is collapsing. I mean, look at this. China's economy is done. China's economy is collapsing. The collapse has began. China's collapse, blah, blah, blah. Why is China collapsing? It's over. China's entire economy is about to collapse. China's economy will not function. China's manufacturing collapse has started. China's economic collapse. And there's more, guys. I mean, look at this. Look at this. And even this guy, I remember Joe Blogs, he's like, China's economy collapses. I mean, does anyone still listen to this idiot, Joe Blogs? He talks a lot of crap, doesn't he? And and you can see just hundreds and hundreds of YouTube channels saying, I mean, look at this guy, 25 days, China's economy is about to collapse. And this guy's got about 1 million subscribers. And this video itself has got about, 10,000 comments or something. And all of these people are like, yeah, yeah, China's economy is collapsing. Yeah, we're so happy. Yeah, it's about to collapse. They deserve it. Blah, blah, blah. And look, 25 days he predicted. And it was 8 months ago. I mean, these idiots who follow these stupid channels, what do you have to say for yourselves, really? What kind of sheep are you that you have to follow these dumb channels? I mean, this guy knows nothing about China, knows nothing about the Chinese economy, and he pretends that he's some sort of miracle economist predicting China's collapse. Same with hundreds of these like fake YouTubers who think they know a bit about economy. They probably read like a half a book or something, and they pretend they're massive economists, and they've built up all of these followers and these dumb sheep who are following these channels, getting all overexcited that China is about to collapse. Then it doesn't collapse, and what do they do? Just sit there waiting for it to collapse, like in their room. They're like sitting in front of the TV saying, "Yeah, China's gonna collapse any day now. Yes, any day now. Oh, damn, he hasn't collapsed yet. Any day now. Any day now." And they're just sitting there waiting for this to happen, and it doesn't happen. And how dumb do these YouTubers look now? Like, how dumb do they look now that, they have predicted 25 days, 10 days, some channels have said, some channels have said even 7 days. I mean, how dumb do they look now? I mean, seriously. And these people that follow these channels, you seriously need to look at yourselves, guys. You guys are the same dumb idiots who believe that Ukraine is winning in the war and believe all this crap that the US media outlets tell you, all this crap these YouTube channels tell you. Seriously, just get a life and start doing your own investigations. And even this channel, TLDR, was an absolute famous UK-based channels who I used to follow one point. Even they were saying China's economy is about to collapse, and now they're saying China's lying about its GDP. I mean, come on, how can a country of 1.4 billion people, lie about its GDP? Because all you have to do is think about it. If a small percentage of these 1.4 billion people start buying stuff, it's called consumption, then obviously you're going to have a higher GDP than anyone. I mean, it's just basic economics. I mean, look at this guy, 29 days. But you get the point, guys. I mean, the fact that all of these countries, YouTubers, even the United States, and even Mr. Chang, Gordon Chang, was predicting China's collapse for over 20 years now. He's written like 3 books about imminent collapse of China. How stupid do they look? And yet people like Gordon Chan are still giving airtime in Fox News and CNN because he's such an anti-Chinese basher, and all of his books are just like, he's just sitting there writing all this anti-Chinese book, and that's how he became famous. None of his books or predictions have come true. The guy's an idiot. But seriously, talking about the Chinese GDP, it's grown by 4.5%, which is beating expectations. So when they say beating expectations, they meant that they thought China's economy was about to collapse, and it didn't, and it's grown by 4.5%. I mean, that's called beating expectations. I mean, it's crazy. And the reason China's economy has gone up by 4.5% is because people have not been spending during COVID and lockdowns, and now that China's opened up, people are going out, spending, buying things. People are going back to work. Factories are producing stuff again, and you can see from the numbers, exports have gone up in the first 3 months. Um, Consumption has gone up, and 2/3 of the 4.5% is actually consumption. Is basically people going out, shopping, buying stuff, and the housing market is starting to go up again. House prices have started to go up. But the thing is, this is only for the first quarter. So economists are actually saying for the second quarter, um, this is going to go up to 7% because people are going to go out, spend more and more money. There's more factory outputs. The exports are going to be going up. Basically, China is not in full speed ahead yet. First 3 months they were kind of gradually coming back into it, but full steam ahead is basically going to be starting from April. You got April, May, June, which is a summer coming up as well, and you will see a huge amounts of consumption in China. There's a lot of tourists going into China now. There's a lot of factories opening up, and it's going full steam ahead. A lot of investments are going into China. So all of this stuff is actually going to be going into full effect from April, May, June. So you can see by June probably you're going to see a 7% increase in GDP, which is going to be absolutely a huge amount. And if things go on as normal during summer times, during July, August, September, which is the peak period, you will see China's economy going up to 10%, and it's because at that point China will be in full steam ahead, because it takes a few months for you to kind of grow, build up that momentum, and they'll be in full swing around June, July, August, September, and you'll see huge amounts of GDP growth. So this is why you see people like Janet Yellen basically calming down on her rhetoric. A few months ago, she was basically being anti-Chinese. She was saying, "Oh, China, causes debt trap. China bloody this, China that." And she was being really, really anti-Chinese with rhetoric. Now she's calmed down because she knows that she needs China. Um, Especially in the economic side. She needs China to kind of buy America's debt, its treasuries, things like that. Right now, China is dumping treasuries every single day by billions and billions every single day. And these reports are out in the Treasury report, which comes out every month, and it shows a gradual increase of China dumping US bonds. Japan is also dumping bonds as well, but you can see other countries also dumping US bonds as well. And these bonds are going to be ending up back into the US, and basically the US taxpayer will have to basically pay for these bonds instead if countries like China, Japan are not buying it. So you can see China's economy has only just started, and all of these Western leaders are now um, absolutely freaking out because America's growth has been very, very low. It's about we're talking about 1%. Its GDP figures are yet to come out, but it's going to be around 1%. Germany's figures are going to be like less than 1%. So is Great Britain. So you see all of these Western countries, they're really struggling with their GDPs. Cost of energy is very high in Europe as well. And United States is having a huge debt problem, 32 trillion in debt. So even, imagine the amount of interest you have to pay on that debt. And every month they basically increase that debt because they've increased the interest rates. And when you increase the interest rates and you basically get a loan or you have some debt, that to pay back that debt, you've got to pay more. So people with mortgages, people with loans, they have to pay more with the high interest rates. And you can see already banks are starting to collapse all over the world. And this is just going to get worse. This is only just the beginning. Gold prices are going through the roof. So there's a lot of stuff that's happening in the economy, but unfortunately for them, China's economy is not linked to the Western economy, and this is why China's economy is starting to shoot up. China's economy is going up. India's economy is also going up. But the problem with India's economy, there is a lot of issues I'm going to be talking about in another video. But the problem with India is they're not an energy producer, so they have to pay for energy like oil, gas, etc. So with the high prices of oil and gas, this is really going to affect India's GDP. Plus, they're having a huge amounts of heat wave issues as well. They've got a huge population, as you know. So during summer, a lot of people will need air conditioning and stuff like that, and that needs power and energy. And because, you know, India is a net importer of energy, they're going to have a lot of issues increasing their GDP, and the huge number of people also is going to be a problem. But India's GDP is still doing well. There's a lot of factories moving into India, but they still got a lot of issues they need to fix. And I'll create a separate video regarding that. There's some further bad news for American cars in China. Namely, Chinese are not buying American cars anymore. So American cars are mainly ICE cars, which is internal combustion engines. They use gas, gasoline, oil, etc. And they are not being sold in China. And China is their biggest market. At the moment, China's market, everybody that's buying cars in China, one third of it is basically electric cars, and two-thirds obviously still gas cars and stuff, but they're not brand new gas cars. I believe two-thirds of it is mainly used cars they're buying, and only a few people are buying brand new ICE cars. And the problem with ICE cars is China has recently released this rule, emissions rule, which basically means that if you're an ICE car and you would basically have you will not be able to drive this car on certain cities and times as well, and because of these ICE emissions rules, nobody's buying these cars anymore. So you have maybe like billions of ICE cars just gathering dust in China. And we're talking about major cars, not just American car companies, but Volkswagen, BMW, Mercedes, and even like lots of Japanese cars, Korean cars. This huge amount of cars just sitting around idly, nobody's buying because this rule comes into effect July, which has also been extended to January, but it doesn't really matter. The fact is, you know, if you buy these cars, you're going to be stuck. You're not going to be able to drive them anywhere because of these emissions rules and emissions targets. So that is bad news for ICE cars. But it's further bad news if you're an American ICE cars. I mean, since America started all of these anti-Chinese rhetoric against the Chinese, these trade sanctions, these lies about human rights and stuff, and starting trouble in the Taiwanese Strait and all sorts of other things. People in China are basically put off the United States. They're absolutely fed up of America, the way they're acting and the way they're acting towards the Chinese people and trying to humiliate them. And Chinese people are very, very aware of the 100-year humiliation where the West tried to humiliate China, and they see the United States trying to do the same thing. So if you're a Chinese national, you love your country, you will not buy American cars because you know that that is you're basically paying money to be humiliated. So a lot of people have stopped buying American cars because of that. And and this is really, really bad news for Ford and GM. I remember once upon a time, American kind of culture and stuff was loved in China. Chinese people loved Americans. The Chinese people loved American culture, and it goes back to history as well. There was a certain group of Chinese people who are actually thankful to the Americans to kind of coming in and helping them during the Second World War against the Japanese and stuff like that. With America's help, the Chinese managed to beat the Japanese as well, and Japanese obviously just surrendered, and Chinese got all of their land back from the Japanese, which which the Japanese invaded. And so there's a small group of people who are very, very thankful to the Americans in the Second World War, and they wanted to kind of build on that relationship, and China wanted to open up, and it was all about globalization. They wanted to open up to the West. They wanted to be friends with the United States, friends with the West, and everything was fine until Obama started saying he wanted to pivot to Asia, and that's when all the trouble started. And then Trump took it to the next level, and then Biden obviously has taken two more levels up after that. So now Chinese people are not huge fans of American products, America itself. They did admire America at one point, but not anymore. And it's all down to America's fault, really. And this is why American brands in China are suffering. Obviously, you heard of Boeing; they're not buying Boeing planes anymore. Now people are boycotting American products. People are also boycotting Korean products because they're so anti-Chinese as well, and they're also boycotting Japanese products. And now recently, they're starting to boycott German products. And I'm going to go into Germany in a bit, and you can see here China's car buyers have fallen out of love with foreign brands, and this goes down to a lot of it down to geopolitics, and a lot of it is down to basically, you know, if you're going to be insulting the Chinese and trying to humiliate them, don't expect them to kind of buy your products as well. But also down to the government's rules with the emission targets and stuff like that. I think that emissions rule was a real genius move by the Chinese. Rather than boycotting these products directly like the Americans are doing to the Chinese, they are basically putting these rules in place, and these rules are going to be affecting these foreign brands which are trying to humiliate China and helping their local brands. So they're doing it in a very, very clever way. So I want to go to BMW. So BMW was in the Shanghai Auto Show, and this Shanghai Auto Show was a major eye opener for foreign brands because they were there competing with lots of Chinese EV brands, and a lot of them were absolutely surprised by how good a quality these Chinese EV brands are and how what great luxury they provide and stuff like that. So a lot of foreign brands were absolutely jealous, and there was an article on the Financial Times talking about how foreign brands are now falling behind Chinese EV brands. And the Shanghai Auto Show was a big wake up call for a lot of foreign brands. But I want to talk about BMW. So BMW was accused of discrimination at Shanghai Auto Show after a video showed Western guests receiving free ice cream while Chinese attendees were told they had run out. So basically, two Chinese girls, these two are the Chinese girls, they're basically offering free ice cream to anybody foreign. But when you have like when they had Chinese guests asking for ice cream, these girls were saying they run out, they're not offering anymore. Well, you know, basically, you see a desk here with a lot of foreign people just sitting and eating ice cream, and these two girls have been absolutely shamed in Chinese social media. And I want to kind of show you this video.
啊，对，我们这边是给你的，给你一个。我们也希望你能表出我们也。
Basically, this guy is angry because
小姑娘在欺负我，说我这个没有，那个没有，我这个也有，这个也有，真是这样东西。没有，
ice cream. And then after this guy, you can see a foreigner asking for ice cream, and he gets it straight away. Look, she's even asking him how to open it and stuff like that. They're really, really happy about opening it for him. And the guy
可以免费拿吗？这个
in the video, he's asking
发
for
完
ice
了
cream,
吗？
and you can see
看下来，我看一下呀。
有吗？里面我看看，要是没有的话，我就不要了。
and she's saying now. And the guy doing the video then goes out and he's basically filming here. So eating ice cream with us. Enjoying the ice cream, and while all the Chinese are basically getting rejected. So these two girls have been absolutely being hammered on social media in China. This is a major story in China. And this reminds me of Bruce Lee's film Fist of Fury, where he walks into the Japanese dojo with a sign saying "No Chinese or dogs allowed," and he breaks this sign. And it goes back to the colonial days when Japan was colonializing China, and there were signs everywhere, well, not everywhere, but in parks and in like certain museums and important places in Shanghai where there were signs saying "No Chinese or dogs allowed," and it was kind of humiliating. And these two girls are basically doing the same thing. So no basically ice cream, no Chinese or are allowed to have this ice cream. Only foreigners are allowed. And I don't know how these two girls were brought up, but personally, I think it's absolutely disgusting they're brought up this way. I mean, I'm not Chinese, but you know, you you should be proud of you know your own country, and for these girls to give ice cream to foreigners and not give ice cream to their own Chinese brand is absolutely embarrassing. And I hope these two girls take a long look at themselves, and I hope their parents basically sit them down and explain to them the history of China, and explain to them why it's important, you know, to be Chinese, and why you should, treat everybody equally, not just foreigners, but also your own Chinese kind as well. So I think these two guys definitely needs to. Their parents probably did a really, really bad job raising them. They really need to be sat down, taught Chinese history, taught manners and things like that. But really, it's absolutely disgusting. So BMW has recently announced an apology, but it's too little, too late, because everybody in China is now boycotting BMW cars because of this incident. And this incident is blown everywhere around Chinese social media, and this just goes to show how some young Chinese kids are still brainwashed to this day. They still look Westerners as the ultimate, race, and same with the Japanese. They look at the Westerners as the ultimate race, but they look down on the Chinese, and it's just goes back to kind of brainwashing, and goes back to also like common sense and the way you've been raised as well. So it's a shame, really. I just hope these girls can rectify their mistake, and really somebody really needs to kind of sit them down and just make them look at themselves and see, and really become better people after this. Anyway, let me know what your thoughts are. So, Mr. Stoltenberg has recently made an announcement. He said that Chinese nuclear weapons are going to be 3 times as much by 2035 as they are today. And you can see China will have 1,500 warheads by 2035. So, what he's asking for arms control, and he's asking for inspectors to go into China and basically inspect China's nuclear weapons and China's weapons in general. So he's asking for all of this, but this idiot is not asking for it on any Western allies. He's not asking for it in the United States, who has got the biggest amount of nuclear weapons, biggest amount of weapons, 800 bases around the world. He's not asking for any arms control for United States. He's not asking for arms control for other allies like Israel. Israel has got nuclear weapons, but he's not asking for arms control or inspectors to go into Israel at any point soon. He's asking for them to go into China. I mean, how hypocritical is that? Do you think China's going to agree? No way. I mean, this is really bad news for United States, because let me tell you something. When there was the Cold War, United States only had the Soviets to worry about. So obviously, all of their weapons, nuclear weapons, were pointed at the Soviet Union, and there was a huge arms race between Soviet Union and United States. So when at that point, United States had 6,000 nuclear weapons pointing at Soviet Union. Soviet Union had 6,000 pointed back. But now they have China to worry about, and Russia as well at the same time. So if they point 6,000 nuclear weapons at Russia, and Russia points 6,000 nuclear weapons at United States, United States have to point 6,000 nuclear weapons at China, and then China has to build 6,000 nuclear weapons back at United States. Can you work out the maths? So United States now needs to produce, basically 12,000. So 6,000 plus 6,000, 12,000 nuclear weapons, 6,000 to pointing at Russia, 6,000 to point at China. And China and Russia both only need to produce 6,000 each, because they can just point it to United States. Can you work out the maths? United States will have to spend much, much more money, and much, much more money maintaining these nuclear weapons, because there's reports that they have to spend 2 trillion basically upgrading most of their nuclear weapons, because most of the nuclear weapons have been there from back in the day, from the Cold War time. So a lot of them need to be upgraded. They need to be put into new rockets and weapon systems, and and also, you know things have changed now, especially when it comes to delivery and rocket systems, and the way you use nuclear weapons, and even like miniature nuclear weapons as well, tactical nukes, and all of these stuff. And now China can produce these nuclear weapons and put them in hypersonic missiles. And imagine, having a nuclear weapon in a hypersonic missile is absolutely, you cannot stop that. So United States has got big problem here, and United States has got a major trust issue, because you can see all of these treaties that they made with Russia and Soviet Union back in the days. Trump basically just tore them up. All of these START issues and all START treaties, America just unilaterally just walked out of them. So who would trust the United States now? I mean, nobody, right? Nobody would trust the United States. And again, when it comes to arms control, well, it was fine when United States was the number one military power after the Soviet Union collapsed. So they probably thought, nobody comes close. We can just, step out of all of these treaties. Nobody will care. We're the most powerful nation on earth. And that's what they did, and now it's going to bite them back in the ass because now no country is going to trust them. China's not going to trust them. Russia's not going to trust them because if they sign any treaties with the United States, what's going to stop United States from walking out of these treaties again? The next president will come along and he'll just tear these treaties up. Um, and these it just you just cannot trust United States really. And this guy Stoltenberg, who is an absolute puppet, does he really think his words have any sort of meaning? Absolutely not. So this guy really deserves idiot of the day in my opinion. So anyway, let's move on. So I saw this story, and Russia says they could arm North Korea if South sends weapons to Ukraine. So South Korea recently came up, and they said that they might send weapons to Ukraine. And obviously, you've got the South Korean president going to the United States, and he's going to discuss this and many other issues with President Biden when he goes to the United States. And if they agree to send weapons um, to Ukraine, Russia will basically say, you know what, we're going to sell weapons and weapons technology to North Korea. And again, this is another, own goal by the South Korean government. They've made a lot of own goals this year. The previous South Korean government, I thought was pretty good. They kept United States in check. They wouldn't agree to them with anything. They weren't being puppets of the United States, but this new Korean government, they're absolute puppets. They've agreed to everything the United States wanted and more. They're destroying their own economy, especially companies like Samsung. They've agreed to all of these chip sanctions to China. They've agreed to more military kind of anti-aircraft missiles, THAAD missiles. They've agreed to join the Quad and many other anti-Chinese as rhetoric. Yeah, the South Korean president even came out and said that he's not going to visit China. Chinese leader needs to visit South Korea first. So he's being very, very anti-Chinese with his rhetoric. He's also being anti-Russian as well. South Korea also placed, the fact that they are kind of going on the Western side when it comes to these sanctions and all these things against Russian people. So they're completely going against Russia. So they're making an enemy out of Russia. They're making an enemy out of China just to kind of keep the Americans happy. And this is really bad news for Koreans in the future. And for them to be heading along this way and they are going to be turning into another Ukraine. The Americans going to use Koreans, so you're going to use Japanese to basically fight Russians or Chinese in a future war. And this is really, really going badly for South Korea. And this new government is basically, Biden's a lucky guy. All of these pro-American governments are starting to come up just when he's in power. So I'm not just talking about South Korea, but also talking about the Philippines as well. They have agreed to 4 new bases near Taiwan. Um, Possibly fight against China if it comes to it. So there's a lot of these pro American governments coming into place uh, at the right time in Biden's time. So I just think that this is really, really bad news for not only for Korea and Japan, but also Philippines as well. But that's a separate video I'm going to be talking about, and maybe even talk about it with Brian Briletic soon, once I get some time. So Blinken has basically gone to Vietnam, and Vil- the funny thing is Blinken is being ghosted by China, and Biden is being ghosted. Basically, nobody's having any sorts of dialogue with China. China has stopped all dialogue with the United States because they don't see United States as a trustworthy partner, and they don't see dialogue going anywhere. The last few times they had dialogue with Biden said one thing and then went ahead and did another. For example, just after Biden's trip, you had Pelosi going in, obviously going into Taiwan, and then recently you had the Taiwanese president. were going to United States and meeting McCarthy, and then you have all of these trade sanctions placing against China and Chinese companies. So you have all of these like you know Biden is meeting President Xi and saying that we're not here to decouple from you, but then United States is making all of these moves to decouple anyway. So Biden says one thing, and United States does another. Then you got the absolute fiasco with the Chinese spy balloons as well. And Blinken was supposed to go to China, and he basically cancelled his trip to China because of the spy balloons. And guess what? China said, you know what? Don't bother coming back. Don't bother rebooking your ticket because we don't want you guys. You guys are just untrustworthy and you're not worth our time to discuss. And they've stopped all discussions with the United States. And this is the time United States need China the most because they're having huge economic issues. There's also issues with climate change. There's issues with the fentanyl poisoning happening all over United States. So they need China's help to basically stop China giving any raw materials to Mexico and other countries. So they need kind of China's help for that, and many other kind of help they need from China, but mainly is economic help because America is running the economy is really, really in a bad position at the moment with the debt level and stuff. So they need China's help, especially when it comes to the economy. 2008, China helped United States. They bought a lot of bonds and debt during that time, and it helped the American economy grow. However, you're not going to see China doing the same thing again. They have realized, America is not a trustworthy partner. So they need China's help, but China is basically refused all actions with United States unless they see some positive actions from United States, unless they start seeing United States kind of calming down in its rhetoric, stopping all of these sanctions from coming into China or reversing them. Unless they see some positive actions from the United States side, this is going to stay as it is, unfortunately. So I want to kind of show you the second idiot of the day, which is Blinken. So he went to Vietnam and to kind of make ties with Vietnam because he's been ghosted by Chinese. He's gone to Vietnam to kind of build that relationship up again. And people have forgotten, well, not people in Vietnam anyway, but people in the United States have forgotten why United States went into Vietnam because at the time they were saying Vietnam communism is evil. Communism is going to spread around the world if we don't go to Vietnam. Communism is evil, and they basically went into Vietnam, killed countless amount of Vietnamese, and they basically carpet bombed a whole country, with Agent Orange. They absolutely destroyed the country, and they just left it destroyed. It took Vietnam years to get to where it is today. It took a lot of hard work and years, and America just, completely destroyed the country. And that's what they wanted to do. They wanted to kind of destroy the country, put it back into the, prehistoric age. And now you have now that you see Vietnam is basically becoming quite powerful. Now you see America coming knocking on the door again. Hey, hi, we want to be your friend. We're your friends. But Vietnam has not forgotten what America has done to Vietnam. The last time Kamala Harris came to Vietnam, she went to some graves of American soldiers who were bombing Vietnam as well at the time, American pilots. So she went to the graves of these people, and it was kind of humiliating to the Vietnamese for her to do that, especially when these people were killing Vietnamese. But the fact that Blinken has gone to Vietnam, this is not going to happen. And also, a lot of people have forgotten that Vietnam is still a communist country. And America at the time, a few years ago, they were saying communism is evil. We don't deal with communist states. And that was their basically mantle at the time. They do not deal with communist states. They do not deal with communist countries. And now they're coming to kind of shake hands with Vietnam. So basically, the idiot of the day today is, can you see anything wrong with this picture? First of all, first glance, you might not think there's anything wrong. So let me show you another picture. Can you see anything wrong with this picture? Can you notice something missing? So I'll give you a clue. You can see the Vietnamese flag on this side. Can you see any American flags on this side? No, you cannot, because they've taken down the American flag or refused to show it. And this is a huge kind of slap in the face to the Americans. And this is a very sneaky way of the Vietnamese to show that basically we won the war against Vietnam. We remember what the Americans did when they came to Vietnam. We refused to basically show the American flag here. And this is absolute embarrassment for the Americans. And none of the Western papers are going to show you this. None of the Western papers are going to pick this up. But this is a sneaky way of Vietnam saying, you know what, we will talk with you, but we haven't forgotten about what you've done. We refuse to put any American flags in our country because we remember what you did to us. And this is a kind of a sign of basically we don't trust you, basically. And our relationships are not going to be the same unless, you have to really do a lot to make it up to all of these years of killing that you did to the Vietnamese and destroyed the country. So you really have to do a lot more than just come in and just kind of shake hands. So a lot of Western papers are not going to pick up on this, and I've picked up on it. And this is why Blinken's sitting there without an American flag behind him, pretending that he's you know trying to get Vietnam on his side and pretending that they're going to go against China. These are just clutching straws, to be honest. And he doesn't see that he's been absolutely humiliated. All of these Americans sitting there with no flag, absolutely being humiliated. So there you have it. Anyway, that's all for today, guys. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you soon. Take care.